I know you don't have a ton of time, so I would like to just dive in with you, sharing as much or as little of your story as you'd like.
Okay, so my story really began a long time ago. I want to say 10 years ago when my grandfather died, but it really started before that. I was not, so I grew up Muslim. I brought up in a very strict household and religiously speaking. And I just did not resonate with a lot of the things that were being taught to me. Since I was a very young kid, maybe 6 or 7 years old, I would ask my teachers, religious teachers, questions, like, why do we need to fear God? And, what is so scary about him that we need to fear him? And things like that. And it just did not sit very well with them
Mhm.
because, number one, how dare I question? Number two, by me questioning, I think it brought up their own
Absolutely.
issues, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and they didn't have the equipment to deal with it. They didn't have the tools to deal with that. So it just didn't sit well with, teachers and then parents and then, aunts and uncles, because I had a lot of aunts and uncles who were very religious as well. And they did not like it one bit if I
Mhm.
ever mentioned anything or questioned anything. And so, when I was around 17 or 18, I said to my parents, you know what? This is just not for me. I don't know what else is out there because I wasn't allowed to explore. But I just know that the way we are being taught things is just not right. The fear of it all is just not okay. The way that, things are being enforced with a lot of fear and not understanding or love or compassion, I didn't like that.
Mhm.
So I wanted to go and explore and see what else was out there, what else was being taught, what other religions and spiritual practices and beliefs were out there. And I did that. And then 10 years ago, my grandfather died. It was an extremely difficult time for me. We were very, very close. So
I'm
it
so
brought up a lot of things that I was not ready for.
Mhm.
And I was just overcome by so much grief, and it was like a depression that hung over me. I couldn't eat, I couldn't think, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. I had these questions, in my mind, like, where did he go? Did he go to heaven? Did he go to hell? Because he was such an amazing guy. I couldn't imagine him going to hell. Like, he did amazing, wonderful things for his community, for his family, for everyone. And I'm thinking, if he went to hell, where am I going to go? Like,
Mm.
I don't like this feeling.
Mm.
And I could not rest. And the night he died, I was on Facebook, I was on these online forums trying to find out, like, what happens when you die. And there wasn't a lot out there back then. People
Mm.
weren't openly talking about their near death experiences as much. And it was, a very confusing time for me. About 2 weeks after he died, I was in this bookstore, almost like a secondhand charity type bookstore,
Mhm.
and I found a book on near death experiences. And when I read this book, oh my goodness, it changed my life
Mm.
because here I'm reading about this lady who died and she went to heaven and she met God, and God is loving and accepting, and there's no judgment. And even in her life review, there was no judgment. It was just a learning experience. What did I learn? What could I have done better? What would I do different? And she met all of her angels and her guides, and everyone was just so loving and accepting of her. There was no fear. There was no fear. Everything was just peaceful, and it felt like she belonged there. And she was talking about this light that was just so kind of like hugging her, and it was so loving. Like, this unconditional love was just bursting out of every cell of hers. And I was like, what is this? What is this? What is going on? Why did she have this experience? Is this what everyone is going to experience to some extent? What is this? And so I became obsessed with near death experiences. So I started learning about them, reading about them, finding people who had near death experiences so I could. Well, initially, I didn't want to write their stories for them. I just wanted to hear their stories. But because back then, I was a ghostwriter, I said, you know what? I would love to ghostwrite your stories for you. And
Mm.
so I did that on and off for the last 10 years on a freelance basis. And I was always kind of hiding behind the scenes, right? Because it wasn't my experience to share.
Right.
And I'm just going to hide behind the scenes and write about it for you and, whatever. And then in 2023, last year, towards the end of the year, I was getting guidance and inspiration to do this near-death experience book where I wasn't hiding anymore. And I was, very much involved in it, and getting a whole bunch of people together who've had near-death experiences, and sharing them in this book. And I was putting this off. I was putting this idea off for a long time because, again, I had my own limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
I didn't have a I didn't have a near-death experience. So who am I to do this book? And why would anyone want to do this with me? And who would be interested in it? And whatever. Eventually, my life just fell apart. I lost all my clients overnight. Either they had to move, to a different country, or their parents were sick and they had to take care of them, or they were dissolving their business, or something was going on that I didn't have control over. And I was just at rock bottom again. I had no money in my bank account. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent or feed my kid. And I
Mm.
was like, fine, God, spirit, angels, guides, fine. You want me
What do
to
I
do
need to
this book?
do?
I was afraid that I was going to lose everything by putting my focus here. I've
Yeah.
lost everything now, so
Mhm.
just tell me what to
Mm.
do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I went into, and by then I was meditating daily and I was very much connected already. But I went into a meditation with the intention of finding the people, right? Because I was like, who is going to do this with me? So I went into meditation. I made my intention to find the people who need to be in this book. And I started channeling some names. I channeled the weirdest list of keywords, and I was like, okay, let's see what we're going to find. To my surprise and delight, a lot of the people's names who I channeled were actual people, and they had near death experiences. And so I contacted them and I said, hey, do you want to be in this book? And they said yes. And so we did the first book, right, about the near death experiences. Halfway through that book, a lot of them had
Mhm.
extra dimensional beings, and beings that they were in contact with, or they were dreaming of, or they had some experiences with. And I was like, okay, so this is the next logical step, this
Yeah.
is the next progression to that. And so that's how the beings came about. Very similar, thing. A lot of them were, they just came to me. A lot of people just naturally found their way to me, whether it be through other people or through, referrals or whatever it may be. And that's how the beings came about. And now we're on to the next two books. It's very similar experiences, very similar, kind of process, but that's what's going on. And then how the Near Death Institute came about, when we were busy with the first book, it was just kind of a natural thing that would happen, right? So
Mhm.
I knew that this is something that I needed to continue on, I needed to do. And so the Near Death Institute was born. And so we basically, among other things, the most important thing we do is publish books not only about near death experiences, but all kinds of spiritually transformative experiences. And again, the goal is to help people release fear, release limiting beliefs, and just, kind of live a life of alignment, really.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And there's so much, your story just resonates with me so much because I went through a period. I've had bizarre experiences my whole life, and I went through a period right around COVID when right when it first started. When I knew I needed to start speaking about my personal experiences as well as what I had started to learn about others. And I absolutely resisted it, same way. And it's funny because the way I first really began to take a deep dive into learning about the truth of things was through near-death experience stories. And it's actually how I found Michelle Carpenter, one of my favorite human beings who she's one of the co-authors in The Beings. And she was on a podcast where they normally just strictly talk about NDEs. And she didn't have an NDE, but as you know, her story is incredible. And she channels the Council of Eight, and she's a medium and she does all sorts of things. Energy healing. She's just absolutely amazing. But I got started It was hers wasn't the first story that I heard, but it was near-death experiences. And the moment I heard the first one, the story resonated with me so much. Anything that didn't sit well with me when I was in church or reading the Bible, I mean, what their stories shared made so much sense, and it was everything that I've ever felt to be true. Um, so I just think it's fascinating that you got started with near-death experiences. So many other people I've talked to, same thing. So anyone that's listening, if you are just in a place where it's like, you know, this is unbelievable, but you're a little intrigued and you want to explore more, I highly suggest the beings or just podcasts, anything that talks about near-death experiences is just so fascinating. One, because they are real experiences by real people, and there's so much, I mean, they're all individual, but there's so much overlap. There's so much consistency with what they come back and share, their abilities after these experiences, and even those who have a darker experience, either that, sometimes the NDE starts out darker and then it ends up still in the same place, or without going down too many rabbit holes, they come back with an explanation for what they experienced. And I think there's just so much, I mean, talk about a good way to get rid of false beliefs. I mean, near-death experience stories, I think, is such a good, it's just a great door for us to walk through to this
Yeah.
whole other world that exists. So I absolutely love that you kind of started off the same way. And I love that you mentioned the resistance you had. And then when it got to the point, um, because it's the same thing for me. I was so concerned about speaking up. I was concerned about judgment, what everyone was going to think. The very few people that had heard me speak about this stuff already thought I was crazy. So I just had so much resistance. And little by little, although I feel like now looking back, it happened quickly. But yeah, one thing would be taken, then another thing, then and when you get left with nothing, you have nothing to lose. It's like I'm going all in.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. I've heard so many people say, the more you resist what you're hearing from your guides, your higher self, from God, the harder it is. And
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that to be true. That has been my personal experience. I feel like if I had just dove in, I wouldn't have had to walk through some of the struggles that I walked through. But I am one of those people. You can't tell me something. I have to experience it. So that, I guess, is why I walked down that path. I don't ever want to do it again, but I thank God that my journey has just been what it is. I feel like I can just speak from it from a completely different point of view now, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I would love to know, because I feel like you just have been exposed to so much. I would love to know what, well, I want to know what like the most fascinating thing that you have personally experienced or encountered or witnessed is, as well as what's maybe one of the most fascinating things that you've heard someone else um share with you.
Wow, there's so many. There's so many.
So many.
Um, the first thing I want to say about the near-death experience thing, I think a lot of people resonate with it because I always say that. I say, if you cannot speak to God directly, you will speak to someone who had a near-death experience because
Yes.
they have had the experience. You will not get a person who's died and come back and have all of these experiences to share, and all of them, like you said, so much consistency. And whether it's consistent or not consistent, the fact that they are it's about how the information makes you feel. Do
Hmm.
you feel in fear when you hear this information, or do you feel empowered? Do you feel uplifted? Do you feel like you have more understanding, you know?
Yes.
Are you intrigued by it? Do you find yourself gravitating towards that no matter what you try and do? Like that was me. You know, my sister stayed with me for a while, and I can remember I would listen to near death experiences. I would watch them on YouTube or whatever. And she would be, you know, sitting in the lounge watching TV, or she would be in the kitchen cooking or whatever. And I would come out and I would say, "You won't believe what I just found out. So when you die, this happens." And I would, you know, go off and tell her all these things. And she would just be like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because she heard it all, right? I speak
Here she
about this
goes
every
again.
day. Because I tell, you know, every single day there's something, it's something. And she was just like, you know, like, you just need to do something with this information because you keep telling me
Yes.
I know it all now. Like, what am I gonna do, you know? And I was like, you know, she's
I've
right.
bombarded my mom and my brother, people that are very close to me. Yes, they've been overwhelmed with information and stories. And I'm finally, now I'm sharing it on the internet. They're like, thank God.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So that's why I think a lot of people resonate with it, because it's the next step, or the next best step. If you cannot have a conversation with God directly about the question that you have,
Yeah,
consult a person who's had a near death experience. That's my personal philosophy. Yeah, it's a
I
little bit biased,
totally
but
agree.
it is what it is,
I
you know.
totally agree.
And then, you know, when it comes to personal experiences or things that I've heard or encountered, that were really crazy, there's so many. One of the things, from near-death experiences that I've learned, my friend Megan Brown, she's had one of the most amazing near-death experiences ever. And she's got a YouTube channel, and we speak weekly on her channel about her different things that she's learned in experience. But one of the things is that she talks about unconditional love and acceptance. And I think this may not seem like wow, but it really is if you think about where we are as humans
Mm,
and the things that we deal with. We don't even know what love is. Like, we don't know how to love ourselves. We
yes.
don't know how to love each other.
Yes.
So when they talk about this unconditional love and acceptance, yes, we can say the words for it, but we don't know what that actually means.
Mm,
And when you start to unpack that, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. You know, even just thinking about the fact that God's unconditional attention has to be on you for all of eternity, because if it is not there, you would cease to exist.
yes.
Just just
I
even
love that.
pondering that thought, like,
Yes.
I'm right now, I am my his attention is on me. His
Hmm.
love is on me. His focus is on me. And that's why I'm alive. That's why I'm breathing. My heart
Mm,
is beating, you know? Even when I die and I leave this body, it will continue to be so because I live on for eternity, you know,
yeah.
and so do you and everyone else. So just even that understanding alone can change your life, especially if you are someone like me who didn't know much about self-love, self-worth, self-acceptance. I was the biggest victim in my life. You
Mm,
know, I was a terrible person. I
mm,
was not a nice person at all. I would manipulate people to get my way. I
mm,
would lie, cheat, steal. I would do whatever I could to get what I want out of a relationship, out of a friendship, out of whatever it may be. I caused a lot of suffering to my parents, my siblings, people that loved me and had my best interest in mind. Maybe not all the time, but you know, I didn't know how to love myself. I
mm,
put myself in situations that were unsafe, that were not good for myself, that hurt me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically sometimes,
mm,
because I didn't understand what it is to love yourself, accept yourself, value yourself, have a sense of self-worth, you
mm.
know? When you learn those things, it reflects outwardly. Now you don't need to put on an act if you are dealing with someone else, because naturally the compassion comes out of you, the love comes out of the kindness, because
Yeah.
that's how you treat yourself now, you
Yes.
know. So those are that's one of the most important things I have learned. The other thing is, I learned this from Sharon Milliman, who also did her near-death experience story in our first book. She said that in her near-death experience, she was sitting and having a conversation with God, and he said, he was engaging her in conversation, and he said, when you look at this tree, what do you see? And she said, well, I see you, God. And he said, oh, when you look at this person, what do you see? And she said,
Mm,
I see you. And he said, when you look at yourself, what do you see? And she said, I see you.
mm,
And that, and it still gives me goosebumps when I
mm.
think about that story and
Yes.
talk about it, because I did not realize that until I did know it to a certain extent, but I didn't embody it until I read that, what she said, because that is what it is.
Yes.
God, all that is, permeates every single thing in
Mm-hmm.
existence,
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at something, don't just look at it like, oh, whatever, it's this or it's that, or it's he or it's she or it's whatever, it's God. That is another manifestation, another fractal of God. That is another focused consciousness that comes from the divine.
Mm,
And if you live your life looking at everything that way, everything changes, your perspective changes, you treat people differently, you look at life differently. Things that you thought were big deals in your life, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? And this has come up, and I'm stressed out and anxiety and whatever. And I'm not, saying those things are not important, because they are. We are human. We need to have a balance. We cannot live with our head in the clouds, We need to have a balance between physical and spiritual.
mm-hmm.
And so then again, that balance of knowing, okay, well, I'm human right now, so these things are important, but it's not going to be so forever. And I am unconditionally loved and supported and guided. And
Yes.
whatever I need or want, I can always ask for it. My guides and my angels and everyone in my spirit team is there waiting for me to request assistance. If ever I'm feeling overwhelmed, pray, ask for help. You'll be amazed at how quickly help will come if
Mm,
you are sincere about your asking, and
mm,
if you are sincere about your receiving.
mm.
That
Yes.
openness, waiting to receive, not even waiting to receive, but looking for, where is it that I'm supposed to receive from?
Mm.
Because it's there all the time.
All
It's
the time.
pouring into your life all the time. We put the blockages up with
Yes.
our own limiting beliefs and our own kind of issues and traumas and things we haven't dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So deal with your stuff, get over yourself, and know who you are.
I love
Put your
that.
ego aside. We're not saying that ego is terrible, ego is bad. Ego is wonderful. It keeps you alive, it
A
keeps you
hundred
grounded in the
percent.
3D. But don't focus so much on it that you forget who you are, that you forget
Yes.
what your mission and your purpose is, why you came here.
Yes.
Why you didn't incarnate here to go to a job and pay bills. You
Yes.
know, you didn't do that. So,
Say
yeah.
that one more time for the people in the back.
We didn't incarnate here to work a job and pay bills. We
I
didn't.
love it. No, we did not. That is a part of it, but no, that's not why we are here.
No, it's not. It's not. Life is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to ignite something within you where you're excited to wake up and you're
Mm.
excited to go to sleep even, and everything
Mm.
should be a joyous experience. And
Yes.
it's not possible all the time. I mean, I get frustrated all the time. I've got a 6-year old. I get mad daily.
Yes.
It's part of life, but then knowing, okay, well, this experience is just for now. It's going to last these few
Mhm.
minutes, these few seconds, and then I'm going to move on to something else. And that is the same thing with your life. I'm a human for this many years, and then I'm going to move on to something else. So what can we do in this time to not only live consciously and live in alignment, but also die in a state of alignment and
Mm.
continue with that vibration?
Mm.
Because the way you live will very much determine the way you die and the way you
Mm.
continue.
Absolutely.
So you have that choice.
Yes, absolutely. Ah, I love it. I wanted to touch base on, I would love your just your view of what God is. And you kind of touched on it just now. I mean, it's truly it's everything. Everything that was, is, and will be. And it's it's fascinating. I love comparing I mean, there's a number of things here, but I love to look at near-death experiences, experiences that people have in deep meditative states, experiences of plant medicine, because they're so similar to the things that you can heal, see, experience, know. I mean, there's so much overlap. And going back to God and God being everything, I was in a meditative state. And for everyone listening, just know if you're going to do any sort of plant medicine, it needs to be supervised and in the right environment with the right people, the right intention, all of that. And it can be medicine. If it's done incorrectly, just like anything else, it might not necessarily have the best outcome. So um keep that in mind. But I had gone outside, and I was looking at a tree, and there was like this one part of the tree where there was almost like a hole in it, a natural hole. And suddenly the hole looked like an owl's face. And then the trunk of the tree suddenly turned into what looked like the foot of an elephant. And then one of the branches looked like the trunk of an elephant. And so it was just turning into all these different things. And the sun was behind it. And rays started slowly coming through the tree to the point where all I could see was light. And instantly, I knew it was God. It was this, when I say I was in pure bliss and love and acceptance, I mean, those words don't even begin to describe what I felt. And I knew it was God. And I knew that everything was God and that everything was everywhere and happening all at once. And there was no separation between anything or anyone. And I came inside, and there were two people actually was supervising what my experience. And I came in and I told them that I just said out loud immediately, I said, everything is everywhere. God is everything. God is everywhere. Everyone is everything. Everyone is God. Like I was just like going on and on. And 2 weeks after that, I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie, but it's called Everything is Everywhere All at Once.
I love that movie.
Yes, yes. And 2 weeks after that experience, I saw the trailer for that movie. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like it just confirmed everything I had experienced. And anytime I have, not anytime, but a lot of times when I've watched podcasts with near-death experiences or someone talking about being in a deep meditative state, I mean, they have literally expressed exactly what I experienced in that moment. Exactly. And it's just fascinating. I mean, it's crazy how the majority of us at this moment, if we're experiencing some of these things, the majority of the time it's because they've either had a near-death experience or there's been an external event like they've lost someone or just something like something big has taken place that has just changed their outlook on everything. um, I do think we will eventually get to the point where we start seeing, especially with children coming into the world, your daughter, right? Your
Yeah.
daughter, the generations after that, I think we're going to start seeing these people have abilities and gifts just naturally. Which is awesome. Like the less of us that need to have near death experiences or like a crisis to explore, what else is out there, I think is phenomenal. But it's just so interesting. I just feel like we are living in the most fascinating time ever. I mean, we are truly, we have access to each other. Look at where you
Mhm.
are, look at where I am. We can speak freely and openly about these crazy experiences. And I mean, it's just, I have never been more grateful to be
Yeah.
living ever. I mean, I am just so excited and energized just for simply being here. I mean, I look at life and I value it and the people around me, just all of it. It's changed my paradigm completely, multiple paradigms, you know? Like it's just it's incredible. And I just think what you are doing is so great. I keep telling my guests I would love to see like a round table of like a near-death experiencer, a neuroscientist, an archaeologist, a historian, you know what I mean? And your books and your I mean, what you're doing, it is that. You are bringing all these people together so that people can see the possibilities and learn truth. And I mean, I love what you're doing. I love it. But going back, I'm sorry, I go all over the place. Going back to God, I would love to hear just God or love. In my
Yeah.
eyes, they're one of the same. But if just what your opinion is on what that means to you.
You've said yes, 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 everything. I agree with you 100%. There's nothing I would have said better or differently. I agree with you.
Awesome.
When it comes to God, now, firstly, the word God, I use the word God because we all know the word God, right? But
Mhm.
God really has so many other connotations and so many other things and so many other limitations that it doesn't really capture what God is, you
Mhm.
know? We
Yes.
say God because, and I use that word because it mostly resonates with everyone, but really, God is something that is unimaginable.
Mm.
It is the creator of everything in existence. It is the consciousness that is behind everything in existence. It holds everything in existence in place. It permeates everything that is, ever is, because if you look at it in terms of energy, energy can either be created nor destroyed, just transformed from one form to another. So everything that is God. And it's a vibration. It is a frequency of unconditional love, acceptance, and just a pure essence of beingness on its purest of levels, because there's no judgment, there's no it allows, it's just an allowing force of it allows everything to be what it is and
Mm.
for what it wants to experience, you know. God loves us so much and has so much unconditional love for us that he allows us, and again, I say he, but God is genderless, really. He
Absolutely.
allows us to have any experience we want. If
Hmm.
you choose to not believe in God, God will allow that. That's how
Mm.
much he loves you,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know?
Yes. Free will. Yes.
Free will, and free will is really God's will,
Hmm.
because he
Yes.
loves you so much that he wants you to decide what you want, and he will allow whatever that is, whatever experience is perfect for you, you know.
Yes.
It is just, it's so simple, yet it seems so complex because it's within everything.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's a divine intelligence that goes beyond space and time. It's just, there's no there's no way our human brain can comprehend what
Mhm.
God is, you know?
Yes.
But even just contemplating about it, it just puts you in a state of ease, knowing that this God, whatever it is holding you, is cradling you, is nurturing you, you know, is
Yeah.
there for you
Yeah.
whenever you need, whatever you may need at any time.
Yes.
It's just, it's comforting. It's really there's nothing more comforting than God. For me, that is, you know.
Yes. I could not
I
agree.
I love I just love talking about God and thinking about God and being in the presence of God, because again, like I said, growing up, I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to have a connection with God, because my understanding of God when I was younger is God is the creator of all things, right? He knows everything, he sees everything. Yes, that is it. And that is still true, but you need to be pure in order to access God. You need to be without sin. You need to be, whatever. And I definitely was not pure and without sin. So that means I do not have access to God. And so
Right.
that made me feel very, I don't know what the word is, but it's like there's a grinding
Yes.
when I think of that word. It's
Mm,
like I feel so, I don't know, like just not at ease, because
mhm.
how do I then access God if I am not worthy, if I'm not good enough, if I'm not pure enough, or whatever it may be.
Yes.
And that's not the case, really. you
Mm.
don't you don't have to be a certain way for God to love and accept you. You are already, the fact that you exist
Yes.
means that God loves
Yes.
you
Yes.
unconditionally and accepts
Yes.
you unconditionally. And, God being all that is, here's where the worthiness thing comes in. Being all that is, if you did not exist, all that is would not be all that is,
Yes.
because you are part of that. It would be all that is minus you. So
Yes.
then it's not all that is,
Mm.
you know?
Yes.
So how can you say that you are not worthy if you exist? The fact
Right.
that you exist is evidence of your worthiness.
Yes.
And it just is
Yes.
what it is, whether
Yes.
you believe it, whether you don't believe it. That's your choice. Again, that's your free will. That's up to you. But for me, that connection is beyond what anyone can tell you or can force you into believing about
Mm.
yourself. And
Yes.
whether and the Islamic religion is really so beautiful. There's so much wisdom, so much amazing, powerful, things that you can learn from there if you approach it, excuse me, with the correct understanding.
Yes. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and that goes for all religions. For
All of
all the
them.
religions, whether you are Hindu,
Absolutely.
Christian, okay, the Hindus don't really have that fear thing going on. But there's a lot of religions that are fear-based. And if you look back, like where did it all begin, where it became fear-based, it was basically just a bunch of people saying, hey, we can control a bunch of other people if we do it this way. If we say these things this way, if we make them believe these things. And then it carried on for, many, many, many years. And so
Yeah.
now we believe what we believe. And we even told that if you question any of this, that is, bad for you. Don't
Right.
question,
Right.
you'll get into trouble. God's not
Right.
going to like that.
Right.
So we then get stuck in this loop where
Yes.
we feel disconnected. We don't know what to do about it. We're not allowed to question. We're not allowed to explore. We're just told to believe whatever is being fed to us. We believe it regardless of how it makes us feel in terms of all that fear-based stuff that we just, accepting.
Yes.
And again, it's not about accepting everything blindly, but it's also not rejecting everything blindly. there
Absolutely.
needs there needs to be that contemplation. You need to
Yes.
contemplate, and when you get connected with yourself, you will immediately feel if something is right or wrong. That's what your intuition is. It's a guidance system that's built in you. You don't even need to do anything to turn it on. It's turned on all the time.
Yes.
You just need to feel, okay, this feels good, let's move along. This feels bad, let's back away. It's
Yes.
that simple. But
Hmm.
we've made things so complicated over time. We forgot the simplest thing, which is connecting with ourselves, which
Yeah.
is again just another form of connecting with God.
Yes.
And so all the other things people talk about within religion are just other manifestations of God, whether it be Krishna or Vishnu, or it doesn't matter what name and what manifestation you want to ascribe to God. It's still another manifestation of it, another perspective and a point of view. That's all it is. You as a person cannot have all the perspectives, because you are just you. You've got your perspective. So
Right.
when you put all of it together, you'll have an even bigger understanding, and even more expanded way of looking at things. And again, that just contributes to your own spiritual evolution and expansion, you know?
I couldn't agree more. And I think you hit the nail on the head with, I mean, everything you just said. But discernment, I think, is so important. And we have over time, we have gotten to a point where we are just so in our heads. So many of us don't even, I mean, it's it's a combination of the way we are taught, the way society is, as well as just being in our heads. We're so busy. We're constantly living in like this state of fear and thinking about the future. We aren't present. We're worrying about things that are, decades away. And there's that side of it, as well as we have, especially for men, I think this is this is definitely the case. I mean, we have taught them to, if they cry or from an early age, don't do that. Like they're so programmed. We as a whole, we're programmed out of feeling. We're shamed and blamed for feeling as though God didn't make, God made our bodies to feel. We have emotion, we have feelings for a reason. Just like we have the ego, everything exists for a reason. So we have just gotten to this point where we are so in our head, and I think so many of us aren't we're so disconnected with our bodies that we don't even realize what we are feeling. And I love what you said about religion and the good and the bad, because just like anything else, there are wonderful aspects of it, as well as things that, aren't aren't of our best interest. And I grew up agnostic. I always intuitively knew there was something else. What that was, I didn't know. My family was not religious. And I moved to Texas from Maryland when right before I turned 30, and in the middle of what we call the Bible Belt. I mean, I had Christians around me all day, every day. There's a church on every corner. I mean, it was like you can't avoid it where I moved. And I have I love the church. I love the community. I Some of the closest people to me I've met in the church. I think there are phenomenal things about the church. I still go. Um, but something that God really put on my heart. I mean, it was a hard, like, I couldn't deny it. He made it very clear that he made it very clear that um I wasn't to read the Bible. So many people around me were telling me to dive in and just really study it, memorize it. And I just had this knowing that I shouldn't, at least not on my own and not at the beginning, because he wanted to build my personal relationship with him first. And knowing who he was on a personal level and the way he made me feel, the all of that, I was then able to read the Bible and discern what was truth, what wasn't, so easily. What resonated with me when I'm in, when I am consciously in relationship with him in any given moment. Um, the way my body would feel, the just all of it. There was just so much of what I read that did not, it made me feel the opposite. So we do absolutely have this internal knowing, our soul, our bodies, there's I mean, we have this whole structure, and we are only using our minds to logically make decisions, whatever. Um, and it's so funny because someone I'm interviewing after you, he's got a podcast called The Broader Lens, and he was doing an interview with Neil Donald Walsh. I don't know if you know who that is, but he had a NDE, and he was on the Today Show, which is a media station in the US. This was years ago. and Matt Lowry, who was the anchor interviewing him, um, he he's asking him all these questions, and none of them are like, anything crazy. And then at the end, he tells him, he says, Neil, you've got 30 seconds left. Um, what what is God's message to the world? So he's asking him this huge question with 30 seconds, no pressure. And Neil sits back for a second and he said, instantly it came in. And he says, "You've got me all wrong." And
Mm.
oh, I'm covered in goosebumps. And we do. We have
Yeah.
got God all wrong. We have
Oh,
so
yeah.
many false beliefs and narratives, and I mean, it goes on and on. And the truth is, he's nothing but love. And
Yeah.
he is all about free will. That is like the first and foremost, before anything and everything, it's free will. And
Yeah.
if for 1 sec, this is why sin and not feeling good enough, not, unworthiness, all of that is so crazy when you really think about it. Because to your point, what you were saying earlier, God created us. He
Yeah.
created each and every one of us, and he gave us free will. So at any moment, why would we think that there's judgment in that? Yes,
Yeah.
he's given us tools and, the a way of living that will make things much easier for us, but he still gives us the choice to use those tools or not. And I truly believe this kind of segues into a question that I have for you about reincarnation, just why we're here. But I truly believe that if at any given moment we're there's no judgment, and our souls are, I think, are here for various different reasons. It all depends, is this your first time on earth? Are you a new soul? Are you an old soul? What, I mean, there's a million different things. Again, another rabbit hole. I think this is so many people's problems. This is so not problem. This is where their hang up is. This is their block, like you said. Why so
Yeah.
many of us can't really fully and indulge in this beautiful relationship with God, because we like you said, there's a grind. Like we are almost afraid to even approach him because we feel like we've done
Mm-hmm.
so many things wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, and we really do, I truly believe we've got him all wrong, or at least
We
we
do.
have, and we're finally to a point where we are seeing the truth. People are waking up, people are sharing, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just beautiful. um but I would love to hear your opinion on just reincarnation, incarnation, why souls are here, why we go through some of the things we go through, that because there's so many people, shaking their fists at God, which I get. I think we all go through that. But I really do think it's because there's a misunderstanding, and I would just love to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts on all of it, why we're here, incarnation, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think, for the longest time we've had God all wrong. And I think now we are beginning to understand. We don't even understand fully. I mean, we're just
Mm.
putting pieces together
Yes.
by connecting the dots, listening to experiences, and, having conversations with others and trying to understand it all. But really, we won't even understand all of it in its totality. We just
Right.
understand enough to feel okay for right now, And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's where we are. That's
Yes.
where we are as humans, and that's perfectly fine. It's not good or bad. There's no judgment. It's just every, I don't know, civilization goes through
Mm.
their own experience, their own awakening, their own evolution spiritually, and this is where we are at right now.
Yes.
And that's perfectly fine. We are doing okay. I just think that it takes it's going to take a little bit more of people to really dig into their own nonsense. You need to dig into your own belief systems and all of the things, because we were fed so much stuff over all these hundreds of years. I don't even know how many, maybe thousands of years. I don't know. I don't know what the number is, but
Yes.
over time, we've learned so much stuff that was wrong, and we're still busy untangling that web. It's going to take a while for us to truly understand what that is. But in the meantime, it would be like trying to, unravel this giant web of knots, but then, you keep losing the open thread. If
Yes.
you can keep your hand on the open thread, then you can unravel things and know you'll always find your way back because you have your hand on the open thread. And that's what I like to think of when I think of God or anything. When I'm exploring a new thing, it's like, well, I know what is absolutely true. I know that for absolute certain I exist. I know for absolute certain that if I exist, I was created by God. And if I exist and I was created by God, I was created out of love, and that He's not judging me. He's not, looking at me to be anything that I am not.
Mm.
He's there 100% supporting me with everything that I do. And that, a lot of us are being called to help others who are stuck or who are where we were 5, 10, 15 years ago, whatever it may be, because we know that it's not an easy thing to do when you have to have this whole awakening thing when it comes upon you. Your emotional thing, your whole emotional system just, goes crazy. Your mental thing, your whole mental system goes crazy. Your spiritual system, your support system, your family, your friends, everyone, they question you, they call you crazy. You might even get shunned from the church by saying certain things or whatever it may be. So it's a lonely, difficult thing, and we need to be there for each other and
Yeah.
not judge each other and not hurt each other and not because I'm going to say talk a little bit about the incarnation reincarnation thing in a little bit, but I want to say this. I've seen a lot in the spiritual community, and that's also part of the reason why I was not always you know where my face was known, where I was this person.
Mhm.
There were so many things that I had written, and things that I've learned that I hid behind, whether it be an alias or some kind of pen name or something, because I see in the spiritual community, there's even this thing of, this ego thing that comes in. Oh, I'm spiritual, and
Yes.
you are not as spiritual as I am, and I am
Yes.
better than you because of
Yes.
that. And,
Thank you.
I know more than you do. And, I have more access to more important people who are spiritual. So, I am better than you. And it's just heartbreaking.
Mm.
It is so disturbing for me, and I even have to discern who do I talk to. People say,
Yes.
oh, come and talk to me on my podcast, come and talk to me on my YouTube channel, and I'm like, yeah, let me see what you about first, let
Of
me see how you approach things.
course.
Someone recently emailed me, hey, do you want to come and be on my show? And I looked this person up and I'm like, oh, do you remember that I emailed you 2 years ago and I wanted to have a conversation with you about this topic? And you told me no because I didn't have a social media presence. And now you approaching me, you want to talk about my book, but you didn't want to talk to me back then because I was
Mm.
not well known online. I wasn't
Mhm. Mhm.
going to be good enough for your brand or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I am like, that is so cringe, like
You're not the
it's just
first
not
person
okay.
I've heard to hear this from at all. So yeah,
Yeah,
totally
it's
agree.
not okay. It's not okay. We are all human. We need to treat each other like human beings who are all walking the same journey, because we are all going to die the same. We are all
Yeah.
going to die, and we're all going to have a life review, and we're all going to go on, and we're all going to have our own experience. So why is it so important for you to show up online in a certain way? This experience is just temporary,
Yes. Yes.
and when yeah, it's just it is what it is. And whether you incarnated in this experience just to be someone outwardly, that's your choice, that's
Mm.
up to you. But I then have my own choice. I then have my own um whatever I prefer. I have my own preferences. So I can prefer something and I cannot prefer something. And again, that is not a judgment, it's a preference
Right.
based on what makes me feel good, what makes me feel in alignment, what can I feel is within integrity of how I live my life. Because how I live my life online is very much the same to how I live my life in private. The
Yes.
only thing that's different is I make myself more presentable. I'll brush my hair and I'll put a fresh shirt on,
Yes.
but other than that, I'm the same person,
Yes.
so it's really, yeah, it is what it is. But about the incarnation thing, it's so interesting for me. I love the conversation about incarnation and reincarnation because firstly we say reincarnation, right? But it's because we're speaking in terms of linear experiences. I'm living now and then I'm going to die and then I'm going to reincarnate. But it's not, time is not what it is in the, I don't know, what do you call it, in the cosmos. It's not the
Right.
same
Right.
as it is here in the
Mhm.
3D. So here we experience linear time, but there everything is happening all at once. Everything is a now moment. It's just where are you focusing your attention to experience that now moment. And so incarnation is like, imagine a hand, all of these, this is you. You have multiple incarnations that you can put your consciousness, focus your consciousness into. Right now, I'm focused into this experience, but I can choose to focus into another experience
Mhm.
when I'm done with this experience, And I learned from a being, a different being, not a human being, a extra dimensional being. I learned that there's a civilization that, well, there's multiple of them, but this specific being I was in conversation with, um, they, in their civilization, they can create a temporary form, right? And another consciousness can embody that form and have a temporary experience and then leave that form, and then the form will dissolve back into their nature, their earth, whatever their planet is, or whatever is natural for them. And that was fascinating for me because for us, we need to literally be born into a human body and then live, and have the whole thing and then die. But they can just come in and out depending on
Mhm.
what they need and what is relevant for them to experience. And that was so fascinating for me. So, yeah, there isn't really an reincarnation, it's just multiple
Right.
incarnations all
Right.
happening at the same time. But where are you focused right now?
Yes.
And we might have multiple human incarnations. We could remember a time when we were on the Titanic, for example, um, or when we were, in ancient Egypt, or whatever it may be. We could have experiences there that we connect to from time to time. And the reason we connect to it is because it's happening right now. It's
Yes.
it's still happening. It's just a different. You need to focus your frequency onto that frequency to have that experience. It's
Yes.
just a change in frequency, really.
Yes.
So it's so fascinating. I love that topic. And I'm thinking of doing another book about that topic, but I'm busy with two right now. And it's like the ideas just keep coming. And
Yes.
you said something earlier, and the next book that I'm working on, it's called The Ways to God. And this is
Mm.
also multiple and diverse perspectives on how God manifests in different cultures and religions and spiritual paths. And again, this is a book of no judgment. It's just, what is your experience of it?
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
what do you know about God from your understanding and perspective? And the purpose of this is to be a resource for people who are confused, like, oh,
Yes.
I want to believe something, but I don't know. Or I feel like I want to learn more about this thing, but I don't know. And so it can open you up to seeing a buffet of options and you can
Yes.
choose because all the ways lead to God.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what you
Yes.
choose.
Yes.
Just do it in alignment, do it in integrity, do it in love, and it will lead you there.
Yes.
And there was something else I wanted to tell you about. Oh, and it's the same with the beings. I was speaking
Yes.
to my friend Megan the other day, and I said to her, don't you find it fascinating that God for me is God for you and is God for everyone on earth, whether they believe it or not. But it's also God for everything in existence, even an alien on another planet who's, I
Yes.
don't know, who's got 3 suns.
You're right.
And, whatever it may be, whatever their situation may be, they've got 100 moons, whatever. God is God for him
Yes.
too.
The God of
And
everything. Yes. Everything is
yeah,
everything. Yes.
I was like, oh my goodness. And
Yes.
maybe they don't have the same belief systems we do. They didn't
Mm,
they don't have the same history, I want to say history, as
mm,
humans do. So they don't
mm.
have but they are very much connected. They
Yes.
understand what it is to be
Yes.
existing and that connection with the divine. And
Yes.
it is just, I wish I could just be a fly on a wall, that
Yes.
I could go and
You and me
see.
both.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally agree. I love everything you just said. Just to drive the point home, I want to go back to the whole ego, and I love you've touched on ego and time, and I think both of these are so important because there is I know, especially for myself, once I started exploring things, there at first it was just like out of complete like awe and wonder and um confirmation for the personal things that I've gone through. I felt so much less crazy
Yeah.
um once I started to explore this. And I think it's so important. The spiritual ego, that's like a very real thing. And I think, I don't know if everyone goes through that, but I do think a lot of us will naturally, because this is what the ego does, get to a point where you a lot of time you don't necessarily realize it. And then again, if you're continuing your inner work, you will catch it if this has even come up for you. But it gets to a point where you realize like this is you put all that aside, like this isn't about like you don't know, it's not about like being better than or knowing any something that someone else doesn't know. It there is, again, going back to time and everything happening at once, all of that, like the one of the biggest things that I want people to know is that there is no pressure. There's no rush. Like, there's no pressure to even dive into this. If this isn't for you, like, keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? This is just an outlet for those who it does resonate with or who want to explore. Because I know that if I had, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the outside community. It just, it wouldn't have happened. So I think it's very important for people to just keep that in mind. You're not late to any game there. You know what I mean? Like life is the game. There's no destination. The whole thing is a journey. Like if you're loving your life in the 3D and like have no desire to explore anything outside of that, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, but if you do want answers, I think this is a great, or just even possibilities or other things to think about and explore and wonder about. Like this is a great way to do that. Explore podcasts, read books, hear other people's stories. But there is absolutely no like I just want everyone listening. Like there's no pressure. Like, again, going back to the unworthiness and all, like don't at no moment in time should this make you feel bad about yourself in any way, shape, or form. Like it all just is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I personally, again, if this stuff wasn't available to me, I would be in a very different place. And there's a part of me that once I felt like I should be speaking up and whatever. I when I first felt like I should really put this out there, how that was going to be. I mean, also like you said, all sorts of ideas went through my head, whether it was a book, a documentary, a podcast, whatever. But I needed to get to a place where I had enough evidence of what I was saying was true, and not again, not to be in a place of being, knowing it all, or you know what I mean, none of that, but because I simply needed to know that I didn't want to put anything out there that would set someone back or that would, I didn't want to be the person that's talking about all these false beliefs and then actually putting out more false beliefs and more shame and more guilt and more, you know what I mean? More lies. That's the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to at least just be able to stand in my ground and know that there was some meat to what I was saying. Because again, there were plenty of times when I literally truly questioned if I was crazy or not, just truly questioned. And that's an awful place to be. When you're questioning your own mind, it's scary. And to learn about all these other people that have had the same experiences or even more wild experiences, you know what I mean? It was just such a relief and so freeing. And like, that's really what this is all about. And I think anyone that is doing this for the right reasons, that you're going to be able to feel it, you're going to know it. If there's, I mean, everyone has the people that they vibe with and the people that they don't. So again, going back to getting out of your head and getting into your body and feeling it out, I think you will know instantly where you are drawn, what works for you and what doesn't. And I just encourage everyone to follow their feelings through this and to just know that at any given point they're not behind, they're not, you know what I mean? Yeah, just whatever they're doing at any given point, all of us, like, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, just follow your own guidance. Your guidance is working perfectly for you, and you are exactly where you need to be right now. Like
Yeah.
you said, there's nothing that you are missing out on. You are not late to anything. You are
Yes.
exactly where you need to be for your own journey. And
Yes.
so you will do things accordingly. Don't look at someone else. And the only reason we would feel that way is because we're comparing, oh, look at so and so. So and
Yes.
so is so much better than whatever. So if you can compare, then you will feel like that because there is no comparison,
Yes. Yeah.
and you cannot compare humans, especially you are a
Yes.
completely different incarnation and I am, there's no
Yes.
overlap in this
Yes.
experience as it is right now. So just know that, and
Yes.
know that you are exactly where you need to be if you follow your guidance. And if you don't know what you were supposed to do next, then ask,
Yes.
pray, and say, God, show me, what am I supposed to do next? Use me. I am a vessel. Show me, use me to serve you, use me to serve humanity, and put me in the right place at the right time. And you will be surprised how quickly that will happen. And
Yes.
then just follow your intuition, follow your guidance, follow what excites you. That is how your intuition communicates with you. Whatever feels exciting and whatever feels like, oh, I want to know more about that. I want to learn more about that. I want to talk to her. I want to go here. I want to do that. That's how your intuition communicates with you, through excitement, through feelings of joy, curiosity,
Yes.
follow that. You can never go wrong by following that. And if something happens that is undesirable by you following that, that was just part of your learning. There was something there that you needed to experience so that you could be ready for the next thing you're going to experience. So there is no right and wrong. It's just
Yes,
all
it
perfect.
is.
It's all
Yes.
perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. Again, going back to the whole judgment thing, the shame, all of that. Again, God made us.
Yeah.
God made us. There is no he finds each and every one of us perfect at every given moment. I
Yeah.
love
He knows
that.
what he's doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Absolutely beautiful. Ameera, I'm going to have all of your links to everything in the description for anyone who wants to read your books, reach out to you, follow you. Um, and as you know, I'm trying to get, so far, who I've had on from the beings has been phenomenal. I mean, I'm having a blast with them. And I know, I'm going to try to get as many as would like to come on and do a big party. I think it would be fascinating. Um, so yeah, I can't thank you enough. Your work is amazing. You are amazing. And I'm so excited to see what you do moving forward, what else you put out. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are doing phenomenal things that are in service to God, and you're just a beautiful example. And yeah, amazing, amazing. I love your
Thank
heart.
you
I love your
so
mind.
much.
You're awesome.